Which three characters were included in the Spyro's Adventure starter pack for the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360? Welcome to another episode of Figure Focus, where I, SCL Matt, focus on the figures of one specific character in the Skylanders franchise. I hope you'll join me for a bit of nostalgia as we take a trip down memory lane. Trigger Happy wasn't exactly my favorite character design, but his playstyle fell in line with how I like to play the games. So, he spent a lot of time on the portal. As you'll quickly find out in this video, Trigger Happy's standard figures follow a very similar path to that of Stealth Elf, who we covered in last week's video. It started right away in Spyro's Adventure. Everyone got their hands on Trigger Happy because he was in the standard starter pack. He got a Series 2 figure in Skylanders Giants, and a big upgrade in Skylanders Swap Force gave us Big Bang Trigger Happy. There was no standard figure for Trigger Happy in Trap Team. If you remember, there were only 5 characters that were reposed for Skylanders Trap Team, so this will be a fairly common occurrence for older characters. But Triggs was back in Superchargers as Double Dare Trigger Happy. But now, as you know, the variants are where it starts to get fun. Trigger Happy was one of the first characters to achieve legendary status all the way back in Spyro's Adventure. He was also one of the first 4 to get a sidekick. This one was called Trigger Snappy. As I mentioned with Whisper Elf in episode 1, the sidekicks were always promotional items and not sold in stores. The initial promotion from Free-to-Lay just required you to send in this order form along with a small shipping and handling fee to get your sidekick. In later years, they were available at GameStop as a free gift when you bought enough other Skylanders merchandise. Surprisingly, he didn't have a variant figure in the Giants era, but the next few years make up for that oversight. In year 3, we got Springtime Trigger Happy and Flocked Springtime Trigger Happy. This is a very unique figure that requires some explanation, but I'll get to that when we get to our rarity check. Hey, I said when we get to our rarity check. We're not there yet. In year 4, just like Stealth Elf, Skylanders Trap Team did not give us a standard figure, but we got both the mini Trigger Snappy and the repainted Eon's Elite figure. Then finally, Double Dare Trigger Happy was one of 2 characters along with their corresponding vehicles to receive the Power Blue treatment. The Power Blue figures were released during the month of April in 2016. April is Autism Awareness Month. They partnered with Autism Speaks for their Light It Up Blue campaign that year to help raise awareness. All right, now it's time for the rarity check. But first, let's check in with that trivia question. Which 3 characters were included in the Spyro's Adventure starter pack for the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360? I'm sure you got at least one of the 3 right because I've already mentioned it today. But the correct answer is Spyro, Gil Grunt, and Trigger Happy. Yes, the Series 1 Trigger Happy was a starter pack figure. They don't get much more common than that. Series 2 and 3 were standard releases, and you shouldn't have too much trouble there either. Now, Double Dare Trigger Happy gets a little more interesting. Double Dare, along with his Gold Rusher vehicle, were not sold individually. They were found in the Land Action Pack. There were 3 different action packs this year. Each came with a vehicle, its driver, and a villain trophy. The trophies unlock new racing levels and boss battles, and ultimately let you race as some of the villains in the game. In any case, these figures were not sold individually. Therefore, they did not show up in the standard case packs. The action packs were shipped in a separate case. You might think this would be good for availability, but because it was a larger, more expensive item, many stores only ordered 1 or 2 cases. To top it off, this was a late Wave 4 release, which simply means that stores weren't likely to reorder the product once they sold out. There was actually a period of time where the Power Blue variant was more plentiful than the standard figure. As I mentioned earlier, the sidekick was always a promotional item. Its availability ebbed and flowed over the years, but it was never impossible to find. The Mini was a standard release, and as with most Eon's Elite, it was a shelf warmer for most of its life. Springtime Trigger Happy was a seasonal variant. It was very easy to find when it was first released, but got a little bit tougher to find in stores as the months went by. Now though, it's still a pretty common figure to find on the used market. The real story comes with the Flocked variant. Let me take a minute to explain how rare, unique, and special this figure is. When talking about Skylanders variants, there are two basic categories: in-game variants and chase variants. An in-game variant is a figure that looks the same in-game as it does in real life. This would include figures like Legendary Trigger Happy or Springtime Trigger Happy. A chase variant is a figure whose appearance has been altered physically, but still shows up as the standard character in the game. A more accurate term might simply be non-in-game variant, but that's not as much fun. Last week I mentioned that Crystal Clear Stealth Elf was a chase variant. The figure looks drastically different in real life, but in the game it will look exactly the same as the standard figure. So when I tell you we have a variant called Flocked Springtime Trigger Happy, the word flocked should scream chase variant. However, it's not just Flocked Trigger Happy, it's Flocked Springtime Trigger Happy. They made a chase variant of an in-game variant. This is a variant of a variant. This is a chase in-game variant. This is something we've never seen before. So not only is this cool from a technical standpoint, but this is a very rare figure. Flocked Springtime Trigger Happy was first discovered down in Australia. It was part of a giveaway at Target Australia. Now this Target is not connected to the Target stores we have here in the US. They had a drawing for 25 of these figures. By itself, that doesn't tell us much. But this is one case where the fine print is actually useful. In the official rules of this giveaway, it was stated Target Australia has been allocated 25 of the 1,500 limited edition Skylanders figurines produced worldwide. There are very, very, very few figures for which we have actual production or distribution numbers. Now, because we don't have a lot of numbers, it's hard to tell where this falls in the grand scheme of variant rarity, but I'm willing to bet this is on the low side. Now, if only 25 of the figures were released in Australia, what happened to the other 1,475? Well, most, if not all of them, came over here to North America and were distributed by Toys R Us. I imagine a few made it over to Europe and perhaps South America, Asia, or even Africa, but I think it's safe to say that the bulk of them ended up in North America. Even though these figures were rare, unlike other chase variants, they were a bit more predictable. In Toys R Us shipments, one flocked variant figure was inserted into each case of Springtime Trigger Happy figures. While that may seem great initially, this is a limited edition seasonal variant we're talking about. So many stores only got one case of these figures, which means that they only got one flocked variant. So if you got to the store early and you knew what you were looking for, you had a good shot at getting one, but everybody else was probably out of luck. Finally, as one of the original 32, all the Trigger Happy figures are playable in all 6 games, with the one exception, of course, for Double Dare Trigger Happy. The Superchargers were considered new characters and thus were only playable in the Superchargers and then the following Imaginators. That about wraps up.
You forgot one.
I forgot one? Which? Oh. I almost forgot. The rarest of the rare. A figure so obscure and hard to find that I don't even like to bring it up in conversations. I am, of course, talking about the 2011 E3 single pack Trigger Happy. If I had to guess, I'd guess there's a good number of folks out there who don't even know this figure exists. So let's dive into the story. In the summer of 2011, before the original Spyro's Adventure game had been released, Activision sent these figures to members of the media who were likely to be attending E3. This figure came along with a note asking them to bring the figure along to the show and to come to the Activision booth for more information. This was a big ask of the media members, in my opinion, and a big risk for Activision. If you've ever been to a trade show or convention, you know that when you're packing for the show, you try to leave as much room in your bag as possible for all the free stuff that you're going to get during the convention. So you're not typically thinking about packing up stuff that you got before the show to bring along to the show. You have to remember that the Toys to Life genre did not even exist at this point. Skylanders was a complete unknown quantity. Activision was really trying to build some hype and banking on the curiosity of the media to make this work. Long story short, we all know that Skylanders became a huge success. But what does that mean for us as collectors? Well, unfortunately, it means that the vast majority of these figures were opened up during E3, and the original packaging is long gone. To make matters worse, these figures are virtually indistinguishable from their starter pack counterparts. And if it can get even worse, the 2011 E3 figures only functioned on the demo game that they were showcasing during the show. If you put one of these figures on a portal now, it would recognize that there's a figure there, but it thinks it's broken. So I would imagine if any of these figures made it into a child's collection, they soon after found the garbage. As with most figures, we have no idea how many, or rather how few, of these were produced. I'm guessing it was probably only a few hundred. They were demo figures created to hype a new game at a trade show. They had no reason to mass produce them. But there you have it. Trigger Happy has a long history in the Skylands, and he has some of the rarest figures we know about. So if you're a super collector, happy hunting. This week I want to give a quick shout out to John, who is the newest member of the SCL VIP family. If you would like to join this family, head over to buymeacoffee.com/SCLMatt, or just click on the link down in the description. By becoming a VIP, you can get early access to all these videos, help me figure out what content to bring out next, and get your name in the credits. And before you go, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so you can be notified about all the latest videos. That's all I got for now, so it's time to let those credits roll.